Greetings and salutations. I know most film creators usually do their best films of the past year, or they do their most anticipated films of the new year. Me looking at the film lineup, it's not very promising. So we're doing a film wrap-up, which is exactly everything that I discussed, included with TV shows and movies. We're just gonna be mashing it all into one video of all the things that I've seen this past year. Spoilers be damned, but I will refrain as much as possible. And I've seen a lot of things this past year. Definitely haven't liked them all, but if you guys want an in-depth review of some of the things that I discussed in the video, I will happily do so. For now, let's roll the damn footage, grab your snacks, and let's hang out. Apparently this is the rejected Star Wars pitch that Zack Snyder offered up to Lucasfilms, but since that got discarded, Netflix picked it up and then split it into 3 parts for some reason. And that's exactly what it is. It's an offshoot of Star Wars with mixed elements of One Piece and a sci-fi action epic, but with slow-mo and very awkward scenes of CGI. Not bagging on anyone's directorial signature. If Michael Bay can have his explosives and get away with that, Zack Snyder can have his slow-mo. We live in a world where we can have both. It just wasn't great. The main problem is that there's so many elements that are happening around the movie and its plot and its characters that everything else that play in the sandbox that it's given is kind of dumbed down. I just wish there was more of a connection and more investment towards the characters that are in the film as well as the villains. I'm just curious how they're going to juggle each one of their storylines thus far and try and balance it out in the new films. But honestly, the only character I really cared about was the droid, and he dipped 30 minutes into the movie. I was avoiding this show, and not for any grand reasons like boycotting a massive corporation or, you know, sticking it to the man. I literally was just denying destiny at this point. But obviously I ended up watching the show and I enjoyed it. It was great. Season 2, it's something. It's food at the table. Let's talk about what I liked about the show. I liked the concept of the TVA and the overall feel of the show. It tickled my sci-fi fantasy detective bone. It made me very nostalgic to shows like Doctor Who that I watched in its prime. Even though none of it makes sense. The show hinges on the fact that the starter pack Loki circa 2012 can manage to turn into this Loki after having friends for the span of 3 days. It's not as believable as the show thinks it is, because you're telling me he watched a whole MCU recap video and he was like, dang, my actions have consequences. I would say the relationship between Morbius and Loki was really what kept the ship afloat for me, and the show seemed like it was the only one that was given the amount of care and production and money compared to all the other shows that they produced, which I can retire from the multiverse concept for the foreseeable future. For me, it just seems like opportunities for rejected writers' pitches to get some screen time, and hey, if they end up being terrible, we can just throw it on an adjacent Earth, destroy that universe, and it never happened. My own hope, and for the future of the MCU, I'm hoping that because of the ending of the show, we can finally settle down and actually commit to a storyline. And one of those plot lines is that this Loki gets to get dragged by her mullet all the way to the back of a McDonald's trash compactor and starts swimming in all the expired TikTok Grimace milkshakes because her character literally frustrates me. I don't know if that's considered a hot take. It seems pretty reasonable to me. It's unfortunate that this won't get as much traction as I believe it should, simply because of the runtime, which I did it. What's your excuse? I profusely punched the air the entire time of watching this film. And this is another one of those movies where it's a biographical book that's turned into a film adaptation, and it talks about the murders of the Osage people and the treatment that was done towards them and a specific family. The way that Robert De Niro's character can do so much damage by serving so little to the plot, the way he manipulates and alters the motivations of the main character, Ernest, is what really makes this film this film. There's a lot of push and pull that happens throughout this film, and you're just anxiously waiting for which side to finally give in. To me, this entire storyline, it just seems very easy who to point the finger to when you have one guy who is solely marrying off whatever expired jar of mayonnaise readily available to marry one of the daughters of the Osage families just to gain their inheritance. But I love the overarching theme of the dramatic irony that was happening within the movie and the way that Martin Scorsese can adapt the human experience to its fullest. Honestly, I don't remember there being a lot of usage of music to enhance on the pangs of emotion throughout the film. I think Scorsese used a lot of the silence in the environment that was happening around them to kind of enhance what was going on at the time. And I did a little simple Googling because the entire time of the show, I'm like, this is too grand for any one person to just come up with these ideas. This would have had to happen in real life. And it has. If you're watching the show, this is loosely based off of a true story about the government being the government and about a family that takes hustling a little too hard and managing those relationships. And on top of that, wanting to support your community and help them out any way you can because you see the suffrage that is happening around them. Also destroying that same community in the same breath that you're trying to help them. It's a whole culmination of so many different things. This show has given me chills just thinking about it. And it's something that will take me a long while before I rewatch it again and will still continue to think about to this day. Wow, just freaking wow. If you want a show that will definitely break your spirit and also consist of a plot line of they thought that they could get away with it, this show is definitely for you. I have nothing else to say other than good luck. I freaking love Transformers. To an extent, if it's not directed by Michael Bay and it doesn't have a Linkin Park song at the end of it, I don't care. I love it because it's very much of its time, and there's no other film that feels very much 2000s than this film itself, which it's had its time. We've tried several times, and I think we just need to be done. I think we need to close that chapter, be done with it, and move on. But the movie was fine until they kind of made Optimus pretty much obsolete compared to Bumblebee. That and Optimus was basically a butt munch to everybody around him, including the humans he was trying to protect. Then we also get about 15 seconds of the Beast Transformers actually beasting. And also the third act made one of the humans a Iron Man-esque character. That was random. And is it just me, or is the transforming aspect of the Transformers the worst we've seen it? You're telling me 2009 and 2006 is the peak amount of CGI we're ever gonna see? You might as well at least give me Sam Witwicky if we're not gonna have good Transformers. I can at least watch this man run around set screaming. This is probably one of the best interpretations I've seen of supernatural elements, including the vampire/Dracula aspect of it. This is literally just a whole bunch of people trying to get to the mainland, and it's gonna take them some time to get there. While that's happening, you have Dracula as one of the cargoes in the ship, just hanging out, dropping bodies like it's Christmas, and these people have to figure out what they're gonna do, how they're gonna find Dracula, and how to kill him. So I found a lot of like the Dracula scenes was as well executed as I'd say Godzilla and some of the other films, where they don't show too much of him, but when you see him and his presence is around, it is as terrifying as it is what you would imagine. I also felt like the film didn't drag past its expiration. The only gripe that I have is that as Dracula is sleeping because he cannot survive in daylight, they're searching the entire ship. How are we not able to find him, guys? First of all, Tom Blythe. Tommy, my boy. Where's the rest of the movie? I'm gonna be honest, the first and second act of this film held up pretty well. However, The Hunger Games is only 20% of it, and everything else is just Snow having awkward sexual tension with everyone else in this film. This was hardly a game, this was a musical. For those of you that are not defrosted fans of the book franchise version of The Hunger Games, Lucy Gray is no Katniss. Literally just kind of in the movie while the plot kind of unfolds around her. Meanwhile, the whole story is supposed to be pulling at the curtain behind President Snow's mind. Why the Hunger Games, and how did he become the turd nugget we know and despise? And there's a quote in here that's supposed to be etched throughout this film that is thematic to what happens, which is, they say that it's the things that we love that will inevitably destroy us, which is very similar to the themes of Killers of the Flower Moon, but in this, I really only feel like we went a hop and a sidestep from that, because as the audience, you can tell he's a very ambitious and sharp individual with some capacity of care for the people that he's around, while also being manipulated by those same people. A snake may shed its skin, but it's still the same snake. I saw no moment where there was a drastic change for Snow, as he's always been this way, just less so. I felt like we never got to see the shift, even though we were picking up in terms of the plot. I guess the deadline was at midnight and it's 11:59. This is probably the poorest usage of cool powers that I've ever seen displayed in a hormonal show. I definitely feel like they leaned a lot more into the gore and sexual content that you see in The Boys to fill in spaces of where the plot was supposed to be. Okay, I feel like I'm obligated to love this film, but I don't love this film. I honestly think it's pretty okay. For one, there's a lot of moving pieces that are happening behind the scenes within this film and even on screen. You have a death of an actor, you have real on-set grief with all the cast members that are surrounding him, script changes because of said death, and then on top of that, a trillion-dollar company that is breathing down your neck, demanding that you wrap up the phase in the most amazing way possible. It's a lot. Shuri goes from support character to main character in a span of one movie, and I'm sure that's nothing that Letitia Wright signed up for initially. Throughout this entire movie, with the amount of weight that is on her shoulders, is in the most respectful and graceful way that I can possibly see on film. Which is crazy that her character is literally going through the same things and it just reflects her emotions on screen. Her brother has unexpectedly passed on. She is now up for succession, and then on top of that, she's outside of her normal circumstances where she has to choose how she wants to lead her country for the best of her country. Something else that I'm really thankful also within this production is that they didn't try to go with the Marvel formula, and Letitia Wright isn't the only one that is carrying this film as well. She also has Angela Bassett as support, and then on top of that, scenes with Winston Dukes really just enhance the purpose of this film. Other than that, my problems mainly hinge on Riri Williams, did not need to be in this film. Forrest guy, Bilbo Baggins did not need to be in this film. And also, whatever Riri can do in her college dorm, I'm sure Shuri can also do in her billion-dollar lab facility. I'd like to review my statement made about potentially having a Hulk TV series. It's been 12 years since the first Hulk movie. You got Hawkeye, who's done the bare minimum. You're gonna not give me a Hulk TV series or a movie? Like, Marvel, get it together. And now I'd like to redact said statement. They have never known what to do with the Hulk since Edward Norton, and you can't tell me otherwise. It just seems like this man, Mark Ruffalo, has the tightest leash of them all and is shamelessly being dragged through each and every single plot thread in every single film just to be like, here's the Hulk, he's here, right? Like, he's right here. This is what you guys asked for. He's over here. He's not going anywhere. He's not gonna pork off on some random planet, disappear for the next 3 years, have his own plot line that be brought up in a even poorer TV series. For the plot. As the demographic that the show was desperately trying to reach and strike the feminist heart of gold, I can comfortably say that the show sucked. This show sucked in a bad way. You're just sitting through the entirety of the show baffled at 90% of the things that they do, and then at the end of it, it just seems like all of the problems that she has is encompassed by lines like this. And she wasn't the first in line as Sephora. Hold on. Let me be a little bit more reasonable. Let me big brain this. She was accosted by men at night, but the freaks also come out, and she's a Hulk. The laziness of the writing, mixed with the fact that the writers apparently don't know how to write a lawyer show. You couldn't pull someone from Better Call Saul. You couldn't pull anybody from literally Law and Order who've been running for as long as I've been alive. Also, imagine setting up an entire show starring a female lead just to prop up a better male lead for his new show that's coming out. It's not as feminist as they think it is. It's not that Disney doesn't know how to write female characters. It's just that they pick and choose of when it'll make their male characters look better. Because everyone in the show is either insufferable or wanting to pork the most insufferable character of them all. Thinking about it now, Marvel used to pump out films every year, and Ant-Man out of all the films felt like a nice little mint after a really good meal. Now it just feels like I just took a spoonful of cinnamon. It's so not good. This premise could have been a lot better, carried by a better character. I'm kind of sick of Ant-Man being used as like a plot MacGuffin. He constantly accidentally ends up saving everyone from a multiverse or accidentally finds the next baddie for the new universe. The King part was great until it wasn't. And then he also got sucker punched out of his own dynasty. So I guess we're done with that. Ant-Man, yet again, is only pivotal to the plot because his contract hasn't expired yet. And Shang-Chi and Moon Knight literally just got here and no one is talking about them. It just doesn't make sense. In a world that is ever changing and the advancement of technology is coming into question, this movie oddly comes at a perfect time. An interesting point that I've heard made is that we've gone from movies saying that AI is bad and we want nothing to do with it to, it's not that bad. In the last 5 to 6 months, we've had actors and writers and directors drop out of freaking productions and studios simply because of the mention of AI being used to write scripts, to help in productions when actors are on leave and they need to slice the time in half of what production nearly takes. Even though this movie mainly bases itself on a fetch quest, I thoroughly enjoyed myself a lot. J.D. Washington might be a little too stoic in his acting. I didn't feel as much emotional investment or connection with him to the plot. Honestly, anyone making a sci-fi in 2023, forget the humans. Just give me some backstory on some droids, please. Don't eat the chicken. Just don't. This was another unexpected find that I was recommended and I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a lot of elements to the show which was comedy, drama, and sci-fi that they were playing with. Fontaine, which is John Boyega's character in the film, maybe had like 3 lines of dialogue. When there was emotional weight and throughout the twists and turns of the film, he definitely held my attention and I believed him all the way through. Obviously, every time Jamie Foxx is on screen, he either outshines everybody that's in the listing or he makes the film that much more entertaining, which is not mutually exclusive. He did contribute more to the comedic side of the film, even with sci-fi and mystery elements that were attached to it, especially alongside his co-star who plays Yo-Yo. I've seen her in other films before, but for some reason it's not coming to mind. She was in the Marvels. That explains why. Even though the majority of the social concepts they touch on this film is rooted in comedy, a lot of the times when they try to escape that and make it seem more serious than it actually is, it's kind of difficult when the entire tone of the movie was all crap and giggles. This is probably the first game-related movie that we've ever seen go right. The voice acting was also a major concern among people apparently when this first came out, and honestly I feel like everyone did well, especially Chris Pratt. The story is cute, it's funny, has a lot of bright colors to keep your attention, and I especially love Jack Black in this film as well. He really just outshines everybody in it and you were not expecting it. This film is great for a 2-year-old and it's even perfect for me. Hot take, but am I the only one that doesn't like Peter B. Parker or Gwen Stacy in this film? I don't know about you, but if I had friends that came back into my life and acted like everything was fine, meanwhile knowing the amount of suffrage I was going to be put through at some point, yeah, I would do things my own way too. Miles right now, Miles is going through it. This movie hit emotionally and seemed more grown up from Miles just being an apprentice, but with certain things that he has to learn on his own. We already know he has the typical struggle of maintaining his personal life and also his acts of heroism, and I'm excited to see the next movie when it comes out. This is probably the most confusing movie I've watched this year, and I've sat through Oppenheimer twice. It's a historical film that's more funny than it is accurate historically, so I guess satire. The actress that plays his wife is also a very strong lead. Like, even though Joaquin Phoenix and this other actress kills it, it's like this entire movie is like a fever dream. I will say some of the camera work under the direction of Ridley Scott is very intriguing, sometimes bold. The tonal shifts throughout this film give me whiplash. On one hand, I'm supposed to be thinking about the amount of cost that went into the war effort, how devastating it was to lose so many lives because of it. But Napoleon will literally see another army barreling down the snow hills and he's like, you know what, this moment calls for cannons at any and all moments. Then the moment that he's not able to use his cannons, the one time, he's like, well, this has never happened before. Really thought this would work. Guess I'll just be on an island by myself in solitude. I'm walking away with the fact that Joaquin Phoenix wants to pork France and his wife simultaneously, and how hilarious it was watching those two have their little dynamic. I would say the show makes you feel like a fish in a fish bag from a carnival and some little girl won you as a prize and she picks you up. The first thing she wants to do is just shake you around and you think you've got it figured out, but guess again. I genuinely feared walking into the next episode because I didn't know what I was getting into. But this is also another show that I binged, so I didn't care. It was like years of emotional abuse just etched into each episode, and it was great. Was my anxiety through the roof? Absolutely, but the storyline was just a little too juicy. The angry monologues are as memorable, as satisfying, and as long as The Social Networks. So if that does anything for you, please go ahead and watch it. We got some romantic subplot, we got some miscommunication, we got characters that are distinct and individualistic in their own aspirations and motivations. The visuals are just as yummy as the food in this show that you will never try because you already know that the food expense is probably like $50 per person. Also, going to Chicago simply for an Italian beef sandwich is a little crazy, and I'm vegetarian, so I'm sure it looks good. I just would never, I just won't. The show is an amazingly stressful time, but it has a lot of moments that you want to stick out through, and it feels very well thought out and fleshed out with each character that you visit. Don't get me wrong, the script was definitely well into its first draft and they pulled the trigger anyway because the assignment was due. There was no proofreading, there was no table read. Among the cat schlorping and the other nonsensical crap that was happening throughout this film, Kamala Khan was by far the diamond in the rough and the best character that was in this film. Plus, she's actually trying. And why is she the only one trying? I guess everyone just clocked in for the check. The false conflict that they create between Carol and Rambo is non-existent. It is whatever. It's talked about for like 3 minutes and then that's about it. This movie is entirely a series of uncoordinated events with things that are supposed to be stitched together properly and form a movie. There's no payoff. There's nothing. You have part of the arc that is Carol Danvers girl bossing a little too hard and she accidentally kills a race of people's god and turns out it's an AI robot that somehow collapsed their entire ecosystem. There's no resolve other than Carol going back and punching the sun back into function, but also struggling to keep up with dollar store villains at the same time. Another scene is that same race of people whose god is now dead have to go and replenish their resources by siphoning off of other planets. So they go to the planet of the Skrulls and they start siphoning their resources, and while this band of misfits are trying to save these people, Kamala Khan is tripping on heroism and she tries saving like additional people. The whole infrastructure of the planet is crumbling. And Captain Marvel has a moment where she's telling her like, hey, no, we need to save these people first. Then they never touch on that again, which I guess is somewhat good of a point because who are they actually saving in this movie? If you're watching this movie again, or you start watching this movie, just consider the amount of destruction that these Powerpuff Girls do compared to saving lives. It doesn't really match up. I'm pretty confident we've destroyed and collapsed at least 3 worlds. Gone. Reduced to atoms. This is just another film where it doesn't really add much of anything other than a production update to fans and also making more establishments for other films. Speaking of which, the post-credits scene, I have no hopes. But those are my thoughts. Despite me uploading for a total sum of 2 times this past year, you guys always seem to make my videos seem a little worthwhile. Regardless, I still find YouTube very enjoyable and fun and a cool way to interact with all the other gremlins that are on the other side of the internet and have my own little space to kind of gather a little society. It's just crazy the amount of you that have stumbled upon my channel, have watched me, decided to subscribe, or still keep up to this day. And I want to thank you guys very much and just say that I appreciate it. So I'm hoping that this year is the time I can kind of slow down and just kind of cater more towards YouTube and the things that I actually enjoy. But I guess something I should also mention is that I'm still planning on doing reviews. That is my bread and butter. Games, movies, books, TV shows, whatever. But even in this small little niche corner of mine, I constantly want to do better and progress more with my channels. And as always, if you guys liked my video or enjoyed my content, be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below your theories and inquiries and I'll respond to them as soon as possible. But anyway, I hope you guys have a lovely day and I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye. Okay. No. Okay. Okay. I feel like I've done it.